Okay, so today we're looking at Cursor. Usually I don't look at tools like this where it costs money and it's not free to use. But with Cursor, they do give you a 2-week free trial, and I've been hearing a lot about this, so I decided to give it a try. So once you download it and install it, it will ask you to sign in. You can just do that with your Google account. And then it just gives you this what's new dialog here. So what's new, we have web and mobile cursor agents, which this first one here I don't really understand right now. Maybe we can look at it once we launch the application. Then we have pull requests searching and indexing. So I'm not entirely sure what this means, but from reading the description here, it can look at pull requests to your GitHub and check out the issues that are on your GitHub as context. So if, for example, there was an issue on your GitHub where a button wasn't working and a pull request is going to fix that, then it can look at that pull request and go check out the issue to make sure it's solving the correct thing, and obviously look at the code as well. And then it can do to-dos, so agents can plan ahead. So it doesn't do things one step at a time. It can make a to-do list of stuff that it's going to do ahead of time and then go through that list one by one. So I'm just going to hit continue here so that we can start up the application. Okay, and now it's asking us if we want to import settings from VS Code. I'm not going to do this because I plan to uninstall Cursor when I'm done with the free trial. So I'm just going to hit skip and continue. Then it's going to ask you for a theme, so I'm just going to pick one at random here. Okay, so it looks like it has 3 modes here. One is agent, which is what we expect from something like Gemini CLI, where you basically just give it a prompt and then it builds something. Then we have tab completion mode, or cursor tab, where basically it predicts what you're typing, so it's basically like an AI autocomplete. Or we have inline edit. So inline edit, it edits code with AI, so it edits the code that you have already written, and then it gives you the keyboard shortcuts to use those commands here. So I'm just going to hit continue, and it's Control-I to use the agent mode, so I'm going to remember that. Okay, and now it gives us options for different languages to use with the AI. I can just leave it at auto for English, I guess, but if you speak a different language, you can pick it in here. I'm just going to leave mine as auto. And then it asks you to install Open with Terminal. So basically what this will do is, in my previous tutorials, whenever I want to open VS Code, I type code and then a dot in my terminal, and it opens up VS Code in the folder that I'm looking at. So this will basically add the same thing to the terminal, but it will just open Cursor instead of VS Code. Again, I'm not going to install that because I plan to remove Cursor from the system when I'm done. So I'm just going to hit continue. Okay, and now we're greeted with an interface that's similar to VS Code, so I'm just going to open up the folder that I created beforehand. The folder is just in my local D drive. I have an AI folder and then cursor test. So I'm going to open that up. Okay, so we're now in the test folder, and I'm just going to click continue here. What's new in version 1? So we have background agents, create agents to edit and run code asynchronously, now available in beta. So basically this background agent can continue running code in the background, not what you're looking at right now. And then they have bugbot. Bugbot reviews GitHub pull requests and identifies potential issues. So I guess this is similar to what they showed us when we were installing it. This basically goes through the pull requests that you make to a GitHub repo, and then it looks for bugs in them. This is also in beta, by the way. All of these features are in beta. Okay, so I'll give it the normal prompt that we give to any AI agent when we're first testing it, which is to build us a landing page for a new Pokemon game. Okay, so I just told it to build us a simple landing page for a new Pokemon game. It should be built in React, so I specified which framework I wanted to use. And it should have a cool design using Pokemon images as part of the layout. Now I did give this a bit more advanced prompt than I usually give to AI when I'm testing it. This is just because it made me install an entire IDE and all of that, so I definitely want to see what it's capable of. And yeah, I'm just going to run this prompt. So the layout here before I run this prompt is on the left hand side here, we have our folders, the same as in VS Code. And then in the center here is basically all of our code. And then the new thing that's not in VS Code is this chat here, which is on the right hand side. And that's basically where you'll put your prompt in, and I'm just going to hit enter here. And before I hit enter, I'm going to look at what's in these drop downs. Okay, so it looks like it has some modes here. It's set to auto by default, and it's balanced quality and speed. So basically, if you disable this, it might be a bit slower, but it might give you better output. And then agent mode here, ask mode, or manual. So if you're using agent mode here, whatever you type in here, it will actually start building. But if you switch to chat here, it's just to ask a question to it. So if you use this ask mode, you can just talk to the AI and not make it build anything. And then manual mode, well, it's manual, you can tell it to do whatever you want. So I'm just going to hit enter here. And okay, it says it's using create React app, which I don't like. So I'm going to, so they have a run command here, but there's no decline. I'm not sure. I'm going to hit escape and see if that works. No, it doesn't. So there's a small stop button down here. And I'm going to tell it I want it to use Vite to start the React project. Okay, so I've mentioned I want to use Vite instead of CRA, and I'm going to hit enter here. Okay, so it looks like it needs manual approval for anything. So I'm just going to hit run here. Yeah, there's no other options down here. It's just the two that I've shown you before, where we can switch between agent mode and ask mode, and then the auto here for balance between quality and speed. Also, it looks like there's some settings here. Okay, so I've gone through the settings, and basically this is to add context here. I mistook this @ symbol for a setting symbol, but basically you click on this and then it allows you to choose a file here. And when you choose that file, it will use that file for context in the query that you give it. So for example, if I want to speak about a file here, I can also link the file using this @ up here. Okay, so it looks like it can also give us a dialog box like this. So it's saying it wants to run this command, and I just have to type yes here to proceed. So I'm going to hit Y. Okay, so that's interesting. What it's actually doing here is not a dialog box. It's allowing us to interact with the terminal. So for example, when we run this create Vite app here, it doesn't automatically do something. We have to also answer questions while it's creating the app. So it actually gives us an interface here to work with that terminal and select the options that we need. So I'm going to select React here, and then I'm going to use JavaScript. Okay, now it just wants to go into the folder and install npm. Okay, so now it's giving us some ideas here, but before I get to that, down here on the left, it's actually saying review one new memory. So the user prefers to use Vite instead of CRA, create React app, for scaffolding the project and whatever. Yeah, that just went away. Not sure how to bring it back. But if I clicked accept on that, it would now remember always to use Vite instead of CRA when I'm creating a React project. So that's pretty cool. Here it's asking there are currently no Pokemon images, so it wants to get new images and put them in the folder. Okay, so the plan is basically it just wants to download new images and put them in the folder, and then it wants to redesign the main app file to create a modern and visually engaging landing page. So that's fine, but now it's asking us, does it want us to use specific Pokemon or just use any type of Pokemon? And does it want us to use official artwork from the Pokemon network or just any sprites or fan art that it finds? So I'm going to say random fan art, and it's asking if we have a suggested source for images or do you want to provide my own images. So I'm going to say fan art, and I'm going to say I don't have a source. Okay, so I said use fan art. I don't have a source, but they should be easy to find. Okay, so this is a little interesting. It actually shows you the code it's generating here instead of in the main page here. So earlier we tried out Klein, and with Klein it actually shows us in the main page as it's working on the code. Okay, and now it's showing us the changes that it wants to make. So I'm going to accept the file, and yeah, now it's working on the CSS. So I'm interested in seeing how it actually goes out and fetches those images. Okay, so I noticed that while I was looking at this page here, it generated some new code and opened a new page up here, which I need to go and accept the code on. So basically, if you don't see the page up here, click on it and then click on accept, it won't be written into the file. So you have to make sure you're looking for new things that it opens up here. Okay, and now it just wants to run the npm run dev command. So I'm going to open the terminal. Okay, so it's just giving us an error here, but I looked through this and what's happening is it's trying to run the command from the root folder. And after creating the project, it created a new folder in here. So I first need to go into that folder and then run the npm run dev command. Okay, and with this, we can now view the page. Okay, so the page is really good and it's responsive as well, but I don't see any Pokemon which we asked for on the page. So I'm going to head back to the AI and ask it if it can add in those images. And yeah, before I hit enter here, notice that there's now a new option up here which shows us which files changed. So I can open this and look at which files it made edits to. And yeah, I'm just going to hit enter here and run this to ask it for the images. Okay, so now it's making some placeholders to put the images in. Oh, it actually looks like it's making the images itself using SVGs. And by the way, earlier I said you have to look for new files that open up here and then click the check mark. But there's actually a check mark right here in the editor where you can just approve the file from there. Okay, so it's done. I'm just going to check out what it made. It doesn't really look like anything is displaying here, so I'm just going to restart the server and make sure that it's correct. Okay, yes, it looks like it's just not displaying any images here. Okay, so now it's saying it's done, but when I actually refresh the page here, I get an error. So I'm just going to copy this and give it to cursor. Okay, so now it says it's done again. And by the way, when it gives you these code completions, you don't need to click the check mark on each one of them. If you just wait for the last one to come in and you click the check mark on that, it will automatically accept all the previous ones as well. So I'm just going to head back to the website and refresh. And no, it still has no images here. So I'm not sure if the model is just bad at working with the images or what's going on. Okay, so it seems like we've encountered a bug here. It ran the copy command to copy the images from the old folder into a new folder. And then it just opened up a new line here for us to type something in. And it's waiting for that before it finishes this command. But there's nothing actually that we need to type in here. So I'm going to hit the skip button here at the bottom and see if that works. Okay, and now it's trying to recreate the images that it already created but inside of the new folder, which is a horrible way to do things, but I'm just going to let it complete. Okay, so it's done again. I'm just going to accept all changes that it made, and I'm going to refresh the page. And yeah, there's still no images, so I'm going to stop it right here because I don't think it's capable of generating the images anymore. I'm just going to tell it to download images from the internet and try to put those in the folder, and we'll see if it can do that. Okay, so I'm just going to catch up on what happened here. It managed to download one image using the curl command, and then it tried to download a second one, and it actually threw an error, which you can see down here. And so once I hit skip on that, it says it's going to try a different approach, and it's actually given up on using images altogether. So it says it's just going to use CSS gradients and emojis instead, which is not what I asked it for, and it's also not what I want. But yeah, once this completes, I've heard that Claude or Cursor can use MCP agents, which are MCP servers, which are servers that add additional functions to Cursor. So I'm going to look for one that can maybe help us get images. Okay, so this is what the website it's made before it has access to images looks like. It's pretty nice, but disappointing that it can't use images by default. So yeah, I'm just going to go look for that MCP server now. Okay, so an update, I went searching for an image MCP, and what I learned is that MCP servers actually need to be installed on your own computer. So I've come to Claude AI here and I've asked it which MCP server can I use to get images for free. And basically it recommended that I use Hugging Face here because it has access to image generation AIs, like Stable Diffusion. So then it's given me some instructions here for how to install Hugging Face MCP server using npm. and then it gives me some instructions of how to add that MCP into Cursor. So I'm just going to run through these commands. Okay, so it actually gave me a mistake with the npm package that it wanted me to install. It didn't exist. So I'm going to try the new option it's giving me here, which doesn't require an API key. Okay, and it was installed. So now I need to add these settings into my Cursor configuration. Okay, so I went digging for where to put this JSON file that Claude gives us into Cursor. And basically you just need to hit the settings button up here. And then you need to go to tools and integrations and add a custom MCP server. So right here, the option is MCP servers. And if I head back here, that's this option right here. So we just need to paste what's inside of this. Okay, and I'm just going to hit save there and close this. And yeah, it's been added successfully and we see a green light here, which means it's connected. And then I'm guessing we can just use it from down here. Okay, so now I just said, can you try the new HF space MCP server, which is what I just added. And here the command it's running, if we look at it, it actually has a prompt in here to generate an image. So I'm just going to wait for this to complete and see if an image comes back. Okay, so it gave us an error here and it says try disabling MCP servers, which is not what I want, or switch model. So I'm going to tell it to use a different model. Okay, so after trying a few times, I realized that this error is not coming from the MCP server, but from Cursor itself. Something about the MCP server stops Cursor from working. So I'm going to uninstall the MCP server, which I've just installed, and I found one last thing to try, which is this website here called Smithery. So what this allows us to do is we create one API key here. So all we need is a single API key and we can access all of these services. So I'm firstly going to uninstall the HFace MCP server that I've already installed, and then I'm going to come back and set this up. Okay, so now to install one of these servers, you just search for it here. So I just searched the word image here, and the first one is an image generator, so I'm going to click on that. And here it gives us a bunch of options for different AI that can install this into, so I'm going to look for Cursor here and click on that. And I just noticed I don't have Cursor open right now, so I'm going to open that up. And yeah, we just need to click on Cursor here. And this will basically auto install that MCP server into Cursor for us, so that's pretty cool. We just hit install here. Yeah, so I've added the new MCP server in from Smithery, and it's still not working yet. It's giving us the same error. If I disable this and now run, it will now run the query. It just won't be able to use the tools anymore. I've also tried removing the first MCP server that we had here, which wasn't working. And it still gives us an error when we're using an MCP from Smithery. So it might just be that this specific MCP server here doesn't work. I'm going to try one more before I give up. Okay, so what I've noticed is that when you pick a tool here, if you head to the JSON section, if the tool requires an API key, which is what I'm guessing this MCP server here requires, then it will ask you for the API key here. But if it doesn't ask you for anything here, it means that the API is free to use. So I'm going to head back to Auto and I'm going to try using Brave Search here, which is Brave as a browser. And it has a tool here called Image Search. So it should be able to use this MCP to search for images and then download them. So I'm going to try installing this one into Cursor. Okay, so after trying absolutely everything, as soon as I install an MCP server and enable it, it was giving me an error. But what I did is I closed the project I was working in and I just created a new folder here just called images test, and there's nothing inside of it. And I enabled one of the MCP servers here and I asked it to use it, and now it's working. So I'm not sure what happened with the previous project, but something in it is preventing me from using the MCP servers. So okay, with a fresh folder here we can now search for images. And yeah, it did use the MCP server, but it was just rate limited, so it didn't get back any results. And it does mention here that the MCP server says it was rate limited. So okay, now let's try using a different MCP server now that we know it's working. Okay, so since that one is rate limited, I went ahead and got the Pinterest MCP server, which Pinterest is a service where there's images on it. So I'm going to say, can you use the Pinterest instead? Okay, so after trying a whole bunch of MCP servers, DuckDuckGo didn't work because of rate limiting. Pinterest, it did work, but it didn't return any images for some reason. And then I've tried Bright Data here, which actually did return results here. So I can now ask it to try and download some of those images. Okay, so it did actually manage to download one of the images I asked for. And yeah, it is in the folder. So playing with MCP servers here a bit, it's a bit difficult to set up, but that's just because I'm trying to use free MCP servers. Remember, a lot of them do require an API key. So probably the ones that require an API key where not everyone can use will be better to use because they aren't that rate limited and stuff. Obviously, if something is free, everyone's going to use it and then it's going to hit rate limits quickly. So yeah, if you do find a good MCP server, it's going to be good to use inside of Cursor here. But if you're just looking for free MCP servers, that's going to be a bit hard to do unless, again, you install those MCP servers onto your own computer and then link them here, which I failed to do at first, so that's why I'm using the online ones. So with that, I still do recommend Gemini CLI, but if you guys do want to give this a try, you can go ahead. And obviously, if you do want to use those paid MCP servers, then this will be perfect for you. And yeah, I'm going to stick to Gemini CLI, and I'll see you guys in the next video.